All right, so we are looking at solving equations with one variable. So we're going to have like x or w or v. Right? We're not going to have a y and an x. We'll get there eventually, but not today. Okay, so we're just solving one variable equations. So the solution to an equation is any value of a variable that makes the equation what? Yeah, I see where you're going with that. Not the word I was looking for, though. That's what equals what he said. It makes it true. Good, whoever just said that. So it makes the equation true. In other words, if I get an answer and if you plug it back in, it actually works, right? It makes it equal. It makes then the one side does equal what the other side says. So saying equal is actually, that's correct. So to find a solution, blank the variable on one side of the equation. What do you want to do with the one variable? I want to get it by itself. So if you want to write all, I'm lazy. Mathematicians are lazy. So I'm going to isolate. Thank you. That was the word I was looking for. You will isolate the variable on one side of the equation using blank operations. Opposite, the mathematical term for opposite, starts with an I. Inverse. You know your vocab. So using inverse operations. Inverse operations are operations that blank each other. They cancel. Good. They will cancel each other out. Also here, guys, just a note, always remember to keep the equation balanced by using the properties of equality. What's properties of equality? What's that mean? Keeping it balanced. If I do it to one side, I got to do it to the other side. Yeah, so in other words, if you do something to one side, you must do it to the other side. I always think about with my kids, right? I have 3 kids. If I go to the store with all 3 of my kids and I buy 2 of them a candy bar and not the 3rd, I'm going to have World War III on my hands, right? Holy heck, my rest of my day is going to be ruined. But yeah, you got to keep it fair. You got to keep it balanced. If I do it to one, I have to do it for the other 2 as well, right? I have to do it for all of them. Got to keep them balanced. All right. So guys, as we're going through all of this stuff, if I'm moving too fast and you didn't catch something or whatever, just tell me to slow down. Okay, I will. Sometimes I get moving faster than I think I am, and I leave people behind. All right, so we're working on just basic solving the equation. Now, the directions say to check your answer. I will show you how to check them, but then I'm probably not going to check every single answer, okay, because there's a lot of them. But if you're ever like, I don't know if I did that right, you could always check it to make sure it works. So number 1, x plus 9 equals -7. So simple, right? It looks so basic. Some people, I know it helps, especially as problems get longer, to put like a line wherever your equal sign is. That way you can clearly see one side, other side. I have some students in the past that like that equal sign kind of moves a little bit, and then by the end, it's gone. I'm like, where'd your equals go? And they're like, I don't know, and they just stick it on the end somewhere. Like, you can't just do that. So if it helps you, put the line, just kind of follow that equal sign all the way down. So to get x by itself, how do you get rid of a +9? U minus 9. Right? It says those inverse operations or those opposites should cancel each other. So 9 minus 9 cancels. And we have x equals, good, that is a -16. If you guys could try to get in the habit also of circling your final answers, I'd appreciate that. As we go through more and more things and you get more and more work, kind of, sometimes we lose things. And some of your handwriting is not always the best. So that way I can kind of find where your actual answer is. Yeah, Harley, I'm looking at you. It's okay, I've learned to read it by now. All right, if you want to check an answer, all you have to do is whatever answer you get, go back to the original problem. Right? So I would go back to the original, and in place of the x, I would put in the answer I got. -16 plus 9, that should equal -7. Does it? -16 plus 9 is -7. It does work. Okay, so if you're ever not sure if you did it right, go back to the original, plug it in, because then it says -7 equals -7, which, yeah, it does. So I know my answer is good. Okay. How about number 2? Right, I have to get h by itself. How is -36 connected to the h? They're being multiplied, right? They're right next to each other. Good. So we will divide by -36. Now, guys, as we get going through here, if you are not great with basic math in your head, grab a calculator. Okay? There's no shame in using calculators. You can always use them in here. So if you need to, the graphing ones in the back, you can use those. If you have your own, you can get it out. But don't ever feel bad about that. All right, so this will cancel. I have an h equals negative what? Oh, I don't like decimals. Ugh. There it is. That's -1/3. Yeah, so a lot of people, I get that -3 all the time. I get that answer. But think about it. If I have 12 cookies and I'm giving them to 36 people, they don't each get 3 cookies, right? They each get 1/3 of one. Okay, so that's 12 divided by 36. The bottom number is bigger, so it's going to stay a fraction. If you're not great with fractions, if you type it in, instead of a division on the calculator, instead of hitting 12 divided by the -36, put it in as a fraction. Now, I will tell you, if you have just the scientific one, I don't believe they let you put a negative in the bottom of a fraction. It doesn't like that. Can I put this negative on the top instead? I can. So like -1/3, the negatives on top is the same as 1 over -3. And that's the same as a negative just out in front, and then 1/3. Good. Now, can I put a negative on top and a negative on bottom? What's 2 negatives make? That's going to make that a positive. Okay, but you can put it on top, you can put it on the bottom, you can put it on front, it doesn't matter. Okay, so on that scientific one, it may not like the negative on the bottom. Did you try it? I don't think it lets you put it in there, does it? If you just know, put in 12 over 36, just know it's negative, right? But if you put it in as a fraction and hit enter, it will simplify it for you if you're not great at that, okay? If you're on the graphing one, do you guys remember I told you yesterday how to do the fractions in those? Green button, y equals, and then hit enter, and it puts the fraction up. Green button, y equals. Okay. All right, number 3. Now, we'll talk about clearing fractions in a little bit, but since we haven't talked about that yet, how do you get c by itself? Yeah, we're just going to add 3/5. So c equals, and if you're doing this by hand, they'd have to have a common denominator. But you can use a calculator. So what's 2/3 plus 3/5? 1 4/15. I will tell you guys right now, 1 4/15 would probably not be the way I would write that. Does anybody know how I would write it? Say that again? Yeah. I would write it as 19 over 15. Now, the reason I would write it that way, I would probably do it by hand. Okay, I would do it in my head. I'm going to tell you right now, if we do like activities in here where you're checking answers and whatnot, most of the answers I give you will probably be improper fractions, not the mixed number. Do you know how to switch those on your calculator? Your calculator can do that for you. How do you switch those? So like right now, like you type that in and you got 1 4/15. Do you guys know how to switch that to make it look like this? Your calculator is the cheater calculator. Yeah, you can hit a single button. Yeah. That is mathematically, yes, how you do that. But if you're even lazier, do you know what buttons to push? If you have this in your calculator, those of you with scientific, go ahead and try this. So make sure you have the 1 4/15 in there, right? So 2/3 plus 3/5, you get that. If you hit second, and then your ABC button, that fraction button, and then hit enter, it'll switch it for you. So you can always do that. If you hit that second ABC, it'll flip between the two forms. Or you can just hit the button. Did it show you both? Oh, you just literally type the number in. Gotcha. Okay, so I don't want you guys to be like, oh, I got 1 and 4/15, I can't find my answer. And I have 19/15 written on there, okay? So if you see answers like that, just be aware they may be written in the different forms. All right, so number 4. So we just talked about that negative, right? Or it doesn't matter if it's on top or bottom or out in front. Mathematicians are lazy. You're going to hear me say that a lot this semester. To make this as easy as possible, what should I do with that negative? Where should I put it? Should I leave it in front? Should I put it on the top? Should I put it on the bottom? Bottom. Let me put it on the bottom. Because if I put it on the bottom, now to get u by itself, I only have to get rid of -5. If I'd put it on the top, I'd have to get rid of the 5, and then I'd have to get rid of the negative, which that's 2 steps. I want to do 2 steps. So if this is u divided by -5, what's the opposite of dividing? You multiply. So multiply by -5. Now, the thing that drives me crazy, I see students do this all the time, is they go and they write the -5 on both sides, right? They're showing their work, being good students. And then over here, they end up writing -5u. And then they get rid of this. Because when I multiply by -5, I'm doing that to do what with this? I'm doing it to cancel these. -5 on top, -5 on bottom, they cancel, right? Same on top, same on bottom, they cancel out. So then I am left with just u, and 25 times -5, -125. If I wanted to check that, because I'm like, no, did I do it right? Where do I go? Yeah, I go back to the original problem, and in my calculator, I would type in a negative. I would type in -125 over 5. Because that negative is part of the problem. It's there. My u is where I says negative. Because then 2 negatives is going to make a positive, and 125 divided by 5 is 25. Okay? All right, number 5. Ooh, it's not just one step anymore. Right? If you look where that r is, I have a 4 and a -3. Which one do I get rid of first? The 4. Good. Whatever one is connected to it, that's the last thing you get rid of. So we will subtract this 4. So -3r equals, that is, did you say 5? Oh, you're a step ahead of me, gotcha. So that's 15. And then remember, if they are touching, that means multiplied. So I will divide by -3. And 15 divided by -3, there you go, -5. On the pretest, the 1 and 2 step, for the most part, you guys seemed okay. Where some of you started to fall apart was on 6, where you gotta do the distributing, and then there's more signs, and then it just kind of falls apart. All right, so let's take a look at 6. Again, as they get bigger, knowing where that equal sign is really, really helps. What do I do first? I distribute. You want to know what I see students do a lot? They do 3 minus 2. Yeah, I don't do 3 minus 2 because this 2 is connected to all of this. Yeah, that's going to distribute through there. Okay? If you see parentheses, you're going to distribute first. Always distribute first. So we have 12 equals. The 3 just kind of comes down with me. Now, keep in mind that 2, do you see the minus in front of it? That makes that -2. So -2 times d, -2d, and then -2 times 4 is -8. Okay, so be careful. If there's a negative sign, a minus in front of it, that makes that negative. That stays with it. Okay? Good. And then collect your like terms. I have a 3 and a -8. 12 equals 3 minus 8 is -5. Bring down the -2d. Now let me stop you guys real quick. And the other thing I see students do a lot on something like that, they're like, yeah, the 3 and the -8, I'm going to put those together. And then I see them add 8 to both of them. Okay, they're doing the opposite, or they -3 from both of them. But do you notice how they're on the same side of my equal sign? If they're on the same side, you don't do the opposite. You just put them together. Whatever it says in front, that's just what I do with them. The only time you do opposite is when you're doing it for one side and then the other side. Okay, opposite sides. All right, next, I'm still trying to get d by itself. Do I get rid of the 5 or the 2? The 5. Instead of minus 5, we will add 5. So we get 17 equals negative 2d divided by negative 2. Now, I see people do all kinds of crazy things when they get to this point. Some of you who are very calculator dependent are going to type that in and you're going to write down a decimal, and I'm going to cry. I hate decimals. I hate them. They're not fun to use. They're not perfect all the time, right? Like 1/3, if I write down 0.3, is that the same thing? No. Do I even like 8.5? I would leave a negative 17 over 2. Guys, I'm a lazy mathematician. Did I need my calculator to leave that negative 17 over 2? No, it's literally written right there. Now, obviously, if it divides nice, I would divide it, but it doesn't. So I'm just going to leave it negative 17 over 2. Now, if you did switch that to negative 8.5, that's not wrong. Negative 8.5, not wrong. I won't mark it wrong. But if the answer to something is like 1/3 and you write 0.3, that's wrong, and I'm going to count that wrong. 0.3 is 3/10, not 1/3. Okay? 0.3 with a line over it, I know what that means, but no, I'm not taking that. Okay? If your decimal goes on forever and ever, leave it as a fraction. Okay? Number 7. I'm trying to get w by itself. What do I have to get rid of first? Yeah. I need to get rid of this 3 first. A lot of students are like, well, can't I just add 5? Do you see how it's like raised up? It's almost like on a pedestal, like it can't get off, right? It doesn't know how to get off that pedestal. It doesn't know how to move. I have to get rid of the pedestal. So if I multiply by 3, that cancels that pedestal out, and it's no longer up high. So then it's 2w minus 5, good, equals 33. Okay, slow down, it's just 1 sec, okay. All right, but yes, then I would add 5 to both sides. So 2w equals 38. And then we will divide by 2. And that is 19, good. All right, but if you see things that's kind of held up on a pedestal like that, get rid of the pedestal first. Okay, bring it down, then you can go ahead and solve. And look at that next one. Find your equal sign. Find the equals. Okay, let's not try to put stuff together that doesn't go together yet. So what would you do first? Yeah, put like stuff together. On each side, there's some like stuff that can go together. Let's do that first. Do I have to do the opposite if it's on the same side? No. I just, whatever sign's in front tells me what to do. So 8m plus 2m is 10m. Bring down the minus 3. And on the other side, I have a 4 and a plus 1, which is 5. Bring down the minus 2m. Now, depending on how you were taught in algebra, some of you may move things different directions and move things at different times. Honestly, it doesn't matter, okay? Me personally, I like to move my variables first, and then I move the other numbers, but you don't have to. So that's kind of how I'll always attack them. I'm going to move my variables. Should I subtract 10 or should I add 2? Good, I'm going to add 2. Could I subtract 10? Yeah, I could. You know what I usually do? I move things to avoid negatives, because that's just one more thing I got to try to remember. So we have 12m minus 3 equals 5. Good. We'll add 3. So 12m equals 8. And then divide by 12. 8 over 12, I agree, will not divide nice and pretty, right? The bottom number's heavier, but that can simplify. I can divide both of these by 4, or I can type it in my calculator, 8 fraction 12, and it will simplify that for me to 2/3. Do not write 0.6 repeating. That is wrong, okay? Pretty much that'll be the rule for the year, okay? If when you go to divide something, if it gives you an ugly decimal that just keeps going, just leave it as a fraction. Just simplify it. And again, you can type it in your calculator as a fraction, hit equals, and it will simplify them for you. Are we doing okay so far? Any questions? All right, good. What about number 9? What do I do first there? Distribute what? Just a negative sign? How do you distribute a negative sign? Good. And some people like the 1 there because they're like, I need a number. Like, how do I type that in my calculator, right? If you need a number, put a 1 there. All right, so the 4 is going to kind of just follow me down. -1 times 6k is negative 6k. -1 times -1 makes that positive 1. So anytime you see a negative in front of that parenthesis, just distribute that -1 throughout. It's going to change all your signs. Okay. Any like stuff to put together? Yep, I got a 4 plus 1, which is 5. Okay, bring everything else down with me. Now, here's where some students will panic. Because me personally, I would add 6k, which is exactly what you had just said. But some people are like, but that puts my variable on the right. And that freaks some people out to no end. They do not like it. I used to teach with a teacher when I taught in Findlay, and she always taught her kids letters to the left. And that's just how she always did it. But I'm lazy and I don't like negatives, so if I can avoid making it negative, I'm going to avoid it. So is it wrong to do it either way? No. So me personally, if this is me doing this problem, I'm going to add the 6k over here. I know, puts the variable on the right. That's okay. It's okay. So 5 equals 9k plus 2. If you want to move, if you're a letters to the left kind of person, that's okay. You're just going to have a negative sign to deal with. Totally fine. All right, so getting k by itself, do I move the 9 or the 2? Subtract the 2. So 3 equals 9k. Now, right here is case in point why you need to show your work. Because what answer did you just say to me? Somebody else said it over here. It's 1/3, not 3. Because what are you dividing by? I'm dividing by the 9. So I find that a lot, like you get going so fast and you go to skip some steps. I don't think right now we're ready to skip steps. Now, as we go further in, yeah, that's fine. But right now, at least show me like every step as you go through. Kind of how, if I'm showing my work, right, I'm showing my steps as I go. That's what I want to see from you guys at this point. Later on, if like, all right, you guys got this, then we can skip them. But a lot of people say 3, just like you did, okay? But if I write it out, you're less likely to say 3 and more likely to say 1/3. All right, so as you're working through problems, is it okay to get a fraction? Yeah. I think too often in math classes, every answer comes out nice and pretty and perfect, and then when you get a fraction, you panic. Don't panic. Fractions are more normal in life than probably the pretty numbers, right? So get used to them. They're going to show up a lot. Good, I'm glad you don't panic. All right, let's stop here for a second. All right, so we're going to move into clearing fractions and decimals. Now, can you solve a problem without clearing them out? Yes, you can. All right, but sometimes it's just, honestly, it's just easier to get rid of them. So, oh, no, it's not going to work. There we go. So do you hate fractions? Yeah. Right? It feels like one. Do you wish you could just get rid of them? Do you want to learn how? All right, 3 easy steps. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so we will get rid of them. To do that, you're just going to multiply everything by your LCD. What does LCD stand for? The least common denominator. Now, does that necessarily mean the lowest number? Like if I have a 2 and a 3, what's the least common denominator?
6.
It's 6. Because what number do 2 and 3 both divide into? 6. I know. Everybody's like, it's 2. No, it's not. It'd be 6. All right. After you multiply everything by your LCD, your fraction should be gone, and then you can just solve it like normal. All right. So notice on this problem, I wrote it very spaced out. I did that for a reason, so it's easier to kind of figure this out. So I have a 3, a 6, and a 2. What is the common denominator?
6.
6. 6. All right, and you'll know real fast if you guessed the wrong common denominator when I show you how this works. All right, so it is 6. So the way this works, you are going to multiply every piece by 6. Whether it's a fraction or not, every single piece gets multiplied by the 6. Now, a lot of times students at this point, they just grab their calculator and type this in. Please don't. It's way faster to do it without the calculator. Trust your teacher. It's way faster. Because what does a fraction bar mean? What's a fraction mean? It means divide, right? This is 1 divided by 3. So what we can do, guys, is divide first. What is 6 divided by 3? It's 2 times 1 is 2. So that becomes 2x. Let's do it again. So on the next one, 6 divided by 6, 1 times 1 is 1. 6 divided by 2 is 3 times 3. I didn't need a calculator. Okay? When you deal with fractions, if you'll notice as the semester goes on, I do them in my head all the time. These are like the little tricks that I'm doing. Right? I did 6 divided by 3 multiplied by the top number. 6 divided by 6 multiplied by the top number. 6 divided by 2, you multiply by the top number. Like, it's way faster and easier to do them that way. So then how do you solve it from here? Good. We'll just subtract the 1. So 2x equals 8. Divide by 2. And x equals 4. And we're done. But you see how much easier that was if I cleared the fractions out? It looked awful to look at it, but once I cleared the fractions, you're like, that's not a hard problem to solve at all. Okay? So let's try another one. There we go. There's a lot of things going on there. Okay, so what is the LCD? It's 6 again. Now, real quick, don't write this part down yet. Don't write this down. But if you had said 2, and you put a 2 on all of these, 2 divided by 3 is not fun, right? So that should be a red flag right away. You're like, oh, maybe I didn't pick the right number, okay? Because it should divide nice. So the LCD is 6 again. So I'm going to multiply all of these by 6. Do I multiply the 2x by 6? If I buy these 2 kids a candy bar and not this one? World War III. You can't do that. Okay, so I multiplied all these by 6. He wants to be multiplied by 6 too. Okay, whether it's a fraction or not, it still gets multiplied by whatever you're multiplying by. All right, so let's go through it again. We don't need a calculator. 6 divided by 3 is 2 times 2 is 4. So I have 4x. 6 divided by 2 is 3 times 1 is 3. So 3x. 6 divided by 6, 1 times 5. And I don't have anything to divide by this time, right? So 6 times 2x is 12x. Look how much nicer that problem looks. Doesn't it look a lot nicer, a lot more doable? I think so. All right, what do you want to do first? Yeah, like terms there. So that's going to give me 7x equals 5 plus 12x. Now, I typically would have moved the 7x over to avoid the negative, but if I move that, I got nothing left over here. So I'm going to go ahead and move my 12 over here. Yeah, sure could. Yep, you could subtract the 5 and then move the 7x, absolutely. So So I'm going to get negative 5x equals 5. Divide by negative 5. So x equals negative 1. Doing okay? Fractions don't have to be scary, especially when we can get rid of them. What's the LCD? I know, 2 in a row is 6. It's got to be 6 again. Remember, I have to divide it by 8. So it's got to be, I could do 16, but it's not smallest. It'd be 8. All right, because remember the whole, what number do 2, 4, and 8 all divide into? 8 divided by all of them is going to divide nice. If you use 16, you can still do the problem. That's fine. You'll just have more simplifying at the end. All right, so we're going to multiply them all by 8. Eight divided by 8 is 1 times 7. We get 7x. 8 divided by 4 times 3. 8 divided by 2, bless you, times 1, 4x. 8 divided by 2 times 3. Anybody else feel smart because you just did fractions in your head? Right? How many of you, I'm sure there are some of you in here who are like, oh my gosh, I never knew you could do that with fractions. Right? You learned something today, right? All right, so now I'm just ready to solve. So minus the 4x. So we get 3x plus 6 equals 12. Lucas, what's wrong? Yeah. Hey, at least I can read you. Some other people just give me the same blank look no matter what. It's hard to read. All right, so then we'll subtract 6. 3x equals 6. Divide by 3. So x equals 2. And we are done. Aaron's confused. Are you good, Aaron? Lucas, are you okay? Why don't you guys try number 4 on your own? All right, guys. So what's the LCD? It's 12. So we have to multiply everything by 12. Even that 4 on the end, again, if I buy 2 of my kids a cookie and not the other one, you can't do that. I don't know. It's what I don't know. But anyway, so like you have to make sure that every single thing gets multiplied. So 12 divided by 12 is 1 times 5 is 5, and then don't lose the x. 12 divided by 2, 6 times 1 is 6. 12 divided by 3 is 4 times 2 is 8. And don't forget the x. And then there's just 12 times 4, which is 48. That's where you should have been once you cleared your fraction. Okay. I would subtract the 5x. You can move the 8x, totally fine. If you did, don't panic. You're just going to be opposite of me for a little bit. So that'll give me 3x plus 48 minus the 48. Guys, please stop talking. So that's negative 42. Divide by 3. And x equals, is that negative 14? Negative 14. You got negative what? Yeah, so you had a positive 42 and a negative 3x. Yep. And again, totally fine. We end up the same way, so it doesn't matter. All right, other questions on that one? Sure. I cranked it up a notch, didn't I?
Whoa.
All right, one step at a time.
Whoa.
What's the LCD?
6.
It's 6, right? Because what number do 3 and 2 both divide into? It's 6. Okay. Now, guys, don't panic because these actually aren't that bad. Positive. Because when I'm multiplying, I need to multiply this by 6. I need to multiply this one by 6. And I need to multiply this one by 6. Did you notice I didn't touch the parentheses? Is there anything to do inside the parenthesis? Can I do 5x minus 2? They're not like terms, right? I can't do anything with that. So when I'm clearing fractions, if there's stuff in a parenthesis, it's almost like that parenthesis is holding it hostage and I can't touch it, okay? Until I get rid of that fraction. Yep. So we don't actually have to multiply everything in parentheses. Don't multiply or it's going to be very, very wrong, okay? So I'm kind of ignoring that stuff in parentheses for the time being. So I'm going to do 6 divided by 3, which is 2, times 1 is 2. That parentheses is just going to kind of drop down, and I'll deal with him in a minute. 6 divided by 2 is 3, times 1, 3. Drop down the parentheses. And then 6 times 3x is 18x. Okay, now I can worry about those parentheses. But yeah, but when you are clearing fractions, make sure you make a note to yourself, guys. If you're clearing fractions out, do not multiply in those parentheses, okay? Those are holding them hostage, so I can't touch those. But now I can distribute to get into those parentheses. So that's 10x minus 4, right? 2 times 2 is 4. Over here we'll distribute. We get 6x plus 9. And then we have a plus 18x on the end. Good. Again, keep track of where that equal sign is. But over here I do have like terms, and if they are on the same side, don't do the opposite. That's just 6x plus 18x, which is 24x. Bring everything else down, and then we'll go from there. All right, I'm going to subtract 10x. Again, you can do it in a different step here. It's okay. I like to move my variables first. So negative 4 equals 14x plus 9. Then I will subtract the 9. Negative 13 equals 14x. And then divide by 14. Should I panic? I have a fraction. I would leave it negative 13 over 14. Yep. That does not simplify at all. If you type it in as a fraction, hit equals, it's not going to simplify. If you divide it, it's not pretty. Just leave it negative 13 over 14. So when I'm clearing out fractions, will you ever multiply by that parenthesis? Clearing fractions, do you multiply in the parenthesis? No, you do not. What's your LCD? 4. You literally only have one number on the bottom. Okay, so it is 4. So when I go to multiply, do I multiply the 3? Yep, I do. I multiply that by 4. Do I touch the parenthesis? Nope. The 1/4? Obviously. The parenthesis? Parenthesis? 2x? Yes. Just those parentheses. Like, they're very obvious, right? A nice big group together, like, don't touch me. Okay? All right, so right here we're going to have 12. And then bring down the parenthesis of 2x plus 5. Over here, 4 divided by 4 is 1 times 1 is 1. Bring down my parenthesis. And then 4 times 2x, it's going to make that a negative 8x. You don't have to. I just don't want to confuse people by leaving it out at this point. All right, next is distribute. So we're going to get 24x plus 60. Over here, He asked the question, did I have to write down that 1? No. When I distribute it, it doesn't change anything. That's still going to be 3x plus 2. Then I have minus 8x. Now what? I'd put like terms together. Some people like to move the 8 and then move the 3, and they do, and that's fine. Doesn't matter. So 24x plus 60 equals 3 minus 8x negative 5x plus 2. Yeah, so I think your biggest thing right now is slow down and not lose the little details. Okay. All right, so I got x's on both sides, so let's move one of them. I'm going to add the 5x. I think most of you probably would do the same. So 29x plus 60 equals 2. We'll minus the 60. 29x equals negative 58. Divide by 29. And x equals, that's negative 2. Good. Isn't clearing fractions fun? No. Yeah, I know. I think things are fun. All right, and last thing I want to cover with you guys is decimals. So you multiply everything by the correct power of 10. So what are powers of 10? Good. 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000. 1 and all them zeros after it, right? So looking at this, any guess what I'd have to multiply by? It's either going to be a 10, 100, 1,000. It's going to be 100. Yeah. Now, the reason I knew it was 100, do you see how there's 2 digits after that decimal point? 2 digits over, 2 zeros on 100. So if there were 3 digits after the decimal point, you'd multiply by 1,000, 3 zeros. Okay? So whatever the most is, because if I only did, that's 1 digit, so it'd be 10. But that wouldn't get that one to be where I wanted it. Okay? So look and see what is the most number of digits after the decimal point. That's how many zeros you need on your number. Okay? So I'm going to multiply all of this by 100. It does. So we'll go ahead and distribute that in. So 100, is it 163? It's 1,630. Because, again, you can use your calculator if you're not sure, but multiplying by 100, those 2 zeros means that decimal moves 2 spots. I need a 0 for that place filler, right? I always think of this like an egg carton, right? I need an extra egg in that one to fill it in. All right, minus, and then I'm going to do the 100 times this one. Good, that's 720y. And then 100 times this one. Good, negative 818. Again, that 100 is moving that 2 spots. Moving it 2 spots. Obviously, the y does not fill that egg carton, right? You have to put a 0 in there. All right, so the decimals are gone. Now I can solve. It's got a y in it. I can't do it. All right, do I treat it differently with a y than I did an x? No, it's just a variable. All right, so I would subtract 1630. So negative 720y equals negative 2,448. Okay, check my mental math here. And then solve for y. Just divide by negative 720. All right, so as I'm looking at this, so I'd grab my calculator, right? Negative 2,448 divided by a negative 720. I get 3.4. Is it acceptable to leave 3.4? Yes. It is a nice, beautiful answer. The decimal stopped. I am fine. Now, if you're like, I get an answer and it's like that, it like fills your calculator screen kind of thing, just leave it as a fraction. Okay? But a lot of times, typically, if it starts in decimals, it's okay to leave it in decimals. Unless it's a big, ugly one, then leave it as a fraction. All right, clear the decimals, then solve. It says round to the nearest thousandth. Guys, do me a favor, cross off that direction. I don't want you to round because of what we just talked about. If it comes out nice and pretty and stops, write it down as a decimal. If not, leave it as a fraction. Okay? So what do you have to multiply by? 1,000. Yep. This has 1 digit, 2, nothing, and 3. So the biggest one is 3. So that means it's 1,000. It has 3 zeros on it. So we're going to multiply this entire problem, by 1,000. So 1,000 times 4.2. Good. It's 4,200. Again, if you're somebody without the calculator, it's 1, 2, 3. So you'd have to fill in 2 zero placeholders there. All right, 1,000 times 1.23. I lost him. Thank you. 1,230. Do I multiply in the parenthesis? No, parenthesis, don't touch that. Stays x plus 3. 1,000 times 4x. Oh, 4,000x minus 1,000 times that, 3,012. So the only downside to clearing out decimals is sometimes your numbers get huge. Okay? So I'm gonna be real honest with you guys. Real world, if it's me working through a problem, not like teaching a class, if there's decimals in it, me personally, I just do the problem with the decimals in it. But if I'm doing a problem and it has fractions in it, the first thing I will do is clear those fractions out. Okay, so I'll be honest, I have to teach you this skill. It's a very necessary skill for ACT, air test, real world math. Sometimes it is useful, but personally I leave my decimals. But for the sake of this class, we'll have a chapter test where I'm going to ask you to clear decimals on the test. After that, if you don't want to clear the decimals, I don't care. Okay, just make sure we know how to do the skill. All right, so we should distribute next. So 4,200x, distribute here. 1,230x, good, 3,690. Ugh, that's huge. Don't lose your equal sign. It's a lot of numbers going on. Yeah, let's put some like terms together. So we got x's here. I know, same side, so don't do the opposite. Just put them together. So it's going to be what, 5,430 x? Do you see how easy it would be to lose an x on something? I almost did earlier. So just be aware. Take time. Watch your handwriting. Good. I would subtract the 4,000x. So 1,430x plus 3,690, it is a lot of numbers, equals negative 3,012. The minions look happy. They like them. Yeah. Subtract the 3,690. So negative 6,702. Isn't this pretty? Divide by 1,430. And in my head, I have no idea what that is. Oh, 4.686713287. What do I do with it? Does it simplify as a fraction? So if you're not sure, type it in as a fraction. And I can tell you right now it does because they're both even numbers. So if you type it in as a fraction, hit equals, it's going to simplify it for you. So negative 3351 over 715. That's lovely. So again, if you're on the graphing one, it's that green button, y equals, hit enter, you can put your fraction in. So yeah, I mean, I tried dividing it first. If it was going to be nice and pretty, I would leave it, but it was an ugly decimal. So I just put it in as a fraction, hit equals, and it simplified it for me. How are we doing? Where did I lose you, hon? This final answer? Okay, so since it didn't divide nice, type it in as a fraction. So hit negative 6702, your ABC button, and then 1430, and hit enter. Now that calculator by default will switch them to a mixed number. Hit second ABC, and then enter, and it'll switch it. So that's where it came from. All right. Number 9. We're almost done for the day, guys. Almost. What do I multiply by? I heard 1,000? 100? Changing his mind? Good. Yep, there's 2 here, 1 there, 2 there. So the most was 2. So it has to be 100. Multiply everything by 100. So 100 times 26.45. 2,645 equals, good, 420x, and that one's 125. All right, at least those numbers aren't as ridiculous as that last problem. The last problem, those numbers got really big. All right, what do I move first? Good. Subtract 125. So 420x equals 2,520. Divide by 420. And x equals. That's a nice, pretty answer. Oh my gosh, right? We haven't had one of those in a while. It's just 6. You almost get to the point where you're like, did I do it wrong? It's pretty. It shouldn't be pretty, right? Most of them are ugly answers. Are we finishing all this today, you think? No.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah, so next thing is your assignment for this, okay? We're going to stop there in the notes. We'll finish the notes up tomorrow. But for today, I have a worksheet for you guys that's practicing some basic solving. Some of them are I want you to clear fractions, and some where you have to clear decimals. Okay?